It's a little full circle for me. Yes, then Director Deputy Bongino and I did sit down and said, how are we going to get this guy? How are we going to find the individual responsible for the Benghazi attacks? And we sat down with Jeanine Pirro, and we sat down with the AG and her team and the Deputy Attorney General. And every single day, every single week, we talked about how we would do it. And we're here today because we have an interagency that is led by superior individuals who have one shared goal: protecting America and our lives and our future. And to any others out there who wish to do harm, especially commit acts of terrorism here and around the world, this is the feat you will meet. You will not be forgotten by us. We will chase you down. And it is a privilege and an honor to be the director of the FBI and come full circle for me.
You've been listening to FBI Director Kash Patel, also the Attorney General there on hand as they're announcing a big bust in a case involving the deaths of American citizens. We'll have more throughout the day here on Real America's Voice. In the meantime, let's get you
Trump's call to nationalize voting, and it reads in part, voter fraud happens and the price of freedom is vigilance. But the idea that non-citizens are swaying national elections isn't borne out by the evidence. There is no shortage of panic in the press after Mr. Trump's FBI recently raided an election office in Fulton County, Georgia, seeking something, anything, to lend credence to his claims about the 2020 election. Yet that mischief won't save him in November. MAGA mouthpiece Steve Bannon suggested that Mr. Trump have ICE surround the polls and call up the 82nd and 101st Airborne. Yeah, after Mr. Trump's political debacle in Minneapolis, independent voters would love that.
There are two things about Donald Trump we all should be very, very firmly astute to. One, he's a liar. And two, he will steal the elections this November. He's setting this in motion as we speak. I don't know how people, kind of look at this, but everything Donald Trump does, he tells you ahead of time he's going to do. So if we know that, there are going to be ICE agents at polling places, we know he's going to target the 15 states or the 15 jurisdictions that are predominantly democratically controlled, small capital D Democrats, and we know that he's already bantied about the idea of the Insurrection Act. What should we be doing as citizens right now to get ourselves ready for what will not just be a long, hot summer, but a very difficult fall when it comes to elections in this country?
Well, I think that there's certainly an argument to be made that we've got to be vigilant. We have to be on guard now. And I think when we try to game out what it is that Trump might try to do, I'm much more worried about the back end of the election than the front end. I don't think we're going to see ICE agents swarming polling places. I think you'd get massive public resistance. I'm much more worried about when ballots are being tabulated. We saw last week that Trump's FBI, in an unprecedented move, went to Fulton County, Georgia, and seized actual ballots that were used in the 2020 election, supposedly for some kind of criminal investigation. Maybe that's just to please Donald Trump's fantasies about having won Georgia in 2020, but I worry it's kind of a test run for what he can get away with in 2026. If we have a very close congressional race, is he going to say that there's a problem in how the election was run and try and go in and have federal agents seize ballots? So we've got to prepare for that right now.
Steve Bannon recently said, quote, "We're going to have ICE surround the polls come November." Is that something that the president is considering?
That's not something I've ever heard the president consider, no.
You can guarantee to the American public that ICE will not be around polling locations or voting locations in November?
I can't guarantee that an ICE agent won't be around a polling location in November. I mean, that's frankly a very silly hypothetical question. But what I can tell you is I haven't heard the president discuss any formal plans to put ICE outside of polling locations. It's a disingenuous question.
He's openly fretting about the possibility of Republicans losing the midterms and a Democratic Congress impeaching him a third time. So he's demanding that Congress nationalize the elections, and Republicans are taking a step in that direction through a piece of legislation called the SAVE Act, which purports to solve the non-existent problem of non-citizens voting in our elections by forcing voters to show documentation like a passport or a birth certificate at the polling booth. In America, a country where you don't need to show your papers, a passport or a birth certificate.
We're soaked in lies. We're drowning in disinformation. We're drowning in real time. You can juxtapose what he says, and then he'll deny it immediately. And then it's joined with the history of the country, right? Detroit, Atlanta, Philly, massive corruption, right? Because at the same time that he's talking delegitimizing, he's also engaging in, right, setting the stage for purging voter rolls, undermining the ability of people of color to vote. So I think we need to see this as a 5-alarm fire and not just simply try to deal with Donald Trump's inconsistencies. The man lies like he breathes. So we need to understand what is really at stake here.
I think there's an optimistic story and a pessimistic story about Tulsi Gabbard being involved. The optimistic story is they don't have anything for her to do. They don't trust her. She's not on board when they're going into Venezuela or going into bomb Iran or something like that. So they give her voting fraud as one of the things she should investigate, and they'll keep her busy, and she can line up with the conspiracy theories that Donald Trump has put out there. And the reason they were in Puerto Rico is because there's some conspiracy theory about a Venezuelan connection to the voting machines. So that's not going to go anywhere. The pessimistic story is much worse. It's that not only is it going to be DHS and ICE and the FBI, but it's going to be the entire intelligence apparatus that's going to be used to try to put doubt on the integrity of the election by claiming potentially foreign interference in the election, by just making things up that can be a pretext for potentially trying to do the things we were talking about earlier in terms of interfering with the counting of the ballots.
I think the focus between now and November should be on Republicans whose names are on the ballot. Because I'm very curious, my fellow Republicans, do you subscribe to the idea of ICE agents being at polling places? Do you subscribe to the idea that you, as a Republican official, should take control of elections in another state? A state that you're not on the ballot in? A state you're not running in? That the federal government, now could you imagine Barack Obama, Mr. Republican Senator or Republican Congressman, or Joe Biden, President Joe Biden in the 2024 election decided, you know what, I think we're going to look at all the red states and we're going to make sure that we take control of the ballots in those red states. Could you imagine, Mr. Republican Senator or Congressman, what your response would be? Share that with us, because that's the response you should be having right now. And I think the more, Eddie, we put that pressure out there to make Republicans, because the president is acting in their name. He's the titular head of our party. And the head of our party says, we're going to federalize and nationalize elections, even though he then comes back and goes, I didn't say national. No, you didn't say national. You just said take control of. What's the difference?
You know, Mike, I hear you. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, in a reasonable world, that seems like that would work.
Okay.
But it also seems to suggest a faith that you have yet to put aside. Right? That is to say, your eyes have repeatedly seen these Republicans behave in a way that they don't care about the hypocrisy. They don't care about the contradiction. They're either fearful or they're just simply committed to holding on to power by any means necessary. And so I'm sitting here not as an expert about elections. I'm sitting here trying to think about the moral rot that has put us in this place where the President of the United States can lie repeatedly to us, can say that he's going to basically try to take over our elections, right? And Republicans will sit back and nod and bend the knee and do whatever we want to do. And we are kind of barreling our way to the midterms, trying to figure out what we're going to do in the face of what we already see and what we see every single day. So I'm not so sure, Mike, revealing the hypocrisy will actually get us out from under all of this BS that we're drowning in.
This is the primal scream of a dying regime. Pray for our enemies, because we're going medieval on these people. You're just not got a free shot on all these networks lying about the people. The people have had a belly full of it. I know you don't like hearing that. I know you try to do everything in the world to stop that, but you're not going to stop it. It's going to happen.
And where do people like that go to share the big lie? MAGA media. I wish in my soul, I wish that any of these people had a conscience.
Ask yourself, what is my task and what is my purpose? If that answer is to save my country, this country will be saved.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
It's Friday, 6 February in the year of our Lord 2026. I want to thank my own production team here at the War Room, and of course, the Real America's Voice guys in Denver for putting together a magnificent cold open. Now I know why some of my staff continually walks around depressed, because they've got to curate MSNBC and CNN. And I want to thank Paul Gigot and the editorial board at the Wall Street Journal for formally naming me MAGA mouthpiece. Thanks, Paul. Normally, your editorials kind of hit us the wrong way, but that was quite interesting this morning. From the ridiculous to the sublime to something, we got a lot to go through, but I want to start with something that's a seminal moment in the MAGA movement and the conservative movement. James Rosen joins us right at the box. James, Associate Justice Scalia, a giant of the 20th and 21st century on the Supreme Court, your magisterial first volume, Rise to Greatness, his, I think, 3-part biography. You're coming out with the second part next week, and we want to give everybody a heads up to get on top of this book ASAP. You've got the Supreme Court years, Volume 2, at least the first part of the Supreme Court. I think it takes up to 2001. Why is Scalia important enough, James, given you're one of the top reporters in town, that it appears in reading the book and looking at the research, every waking moment of any time you have left over from reporting is spent working on this book. Why would you do that? Why is Scalia so important that you would dedicate basically your life to this?
That's weird, Steve, because your question echoes one that is persistently asked by Mrs. Rosen. But first, I just want to say I'm grateful to be with you. Longtime listener, first-time caller, as it were. And I'm joining you from my office at Newsmax, where I am the chief Washington correspondent and feel very privileged to work. And yes, this book is out this coming Tuesday. It's called Scalia, Supreme Court Years 1986 to 2001. It covers the first half of Justice Scalia's nearly 30 terms on the Supreme Court. And as you mentioned, the first book came out about 3 years ago, published by Regnery Skyhorse. That was called Scalia, Rise to Greatness, 1936 to 1986. There were 2 previous biographies of Scalia, one he cooperated with, one not at all. They both came out while he was alive. And both books ended in the same place, Steve, which is to say openly hostile toward Justice Scalia's personality, conduct, philosophy, and jurisprudence and his legacy. So this is the first admiring biography, or as I like to say it, it's the first biography of Antonin Scalia written by someone who has his head screwed on straight. That first volume took you up until the moment he sat down on the Supreme Court. And he had a fascinating career before he even became a judge, working under Presidents Nixon, Ford, and then being nominated by President Reagan to the appellate bench and then the Supreme Court. This new book, out Tuesday, Scalia, Supreme Court Years 1986 to 2001, covers his first day as a justice all the way up through the national trauma of Bush v. Gore. Bracing it was, Steve, for this reporter to realize that there sits today on the Supreme Court only one justice who sat on Bush v. Gore, and that is Clarence Thomas, who was interviewed for this project. But you asked, why is it important? And I'm really glad you asked. Antonin Scalia is not just one of the most important Supreme Court justices in history. He's one of the most important Americans of the last 100 years. And it's because of the philosophy he brought to the business of being a judge. When Scalia came along as a federal judge in the early 80s and then rose to the Supreme Court in 1986, confirmed by the United States Senate 98-0, and which always bothered him, by the way. Well into the 21st century, Scalia would be saying, let's just call it 100. He was ticked off that 2 senators didn't vote. But in any case, when he came along, there prevailed in America, and particularly in the law, this notion of a living constitution. This is still taught to school children every day. And the living constitution idea, which is subscribed to by liberals on the Supreme Court, the living constitution holds that the document, the Constitution itself, and indeed every law that's been enacted ever since the Constitution, should be interpreted by judges, which is their central business of interpreting the laws, telling us what the law means, in a way that allows the judge to expand the meaning of the Constitution, of a given clause or any law, to, in effect, alter the meaning, to modify the meaning, to graft their latter-day policy preferences onto the existing law. And the idea behind it is that this Constitution should expand to cover phenomena that the founders never could have envisioned, such as nuclear weapons or the internet. Scalia stood athwart all of that. And Scalia believed in something called originalism. And his idea was that he didn't care what the intent behind the Constitution was or the lawmakers' intent behind a given law was. Their intent is embodied in the text that they voted up or down. And if they voted it up and a president signed it into law, that's the intent. The first place we should be looking in order to interpret a law is its text. And that text carries a meaning, and not a meaning changed by latter-day judges, but the original meaning it was widely understood to have at the time it was enacted.
James, hang on 1 second. We'll take a short commercial break. Textualism, originalism, next with James Rosen.
There are few things more aggravating than seeing your tax dollars wasted by the government. All too often, when big government tries to save the day, the funds sent around the world to help people in need are diverted by corrupt leaders to line their own pockets, enrich their cronies, or further an agenda that has nothing to do with helping their countrymen. You can do a better job at promoting freedom than any government can. Scan the QR code now or visit atlasnetwork.org/RAV today to join the worldwide freedom movement. With your gift of just $19 a month, we'll send you an Atlas Network exclusive hat. Plus, we'll send the print edition of our Freedom's Champion magazine to your door. We identify, train up, and celebrate local leaders as they work to make freedom a reality across the world. Our partners often risk everything: their reputations, their livelihoods, even their lives to fight for freedom in places where authoritarianism reigns. Visit atlasnetwork.org/RAV or scan the QR code to join our mission to help pro-freedom organizations around the world. Donate $19 a month to receive your exclusive Atlas Network hat. Welcome to Real America's Voice, Real Minute. Your quick look at the powerful stories of faith and freedom, inspiring audiences across the nation. Angel Studios presents.
I'm Bo Davidson with this Real America's Voice, Real Minute. Most people know the biblical story of David, the shepherd boy who fought Goliath and became king. Well, Angel Studios has created a new animated film called David that tells the story of Israel's greatest king.
Followed when I'm looking for the way, when I'm searching for the answer, in the moments I'm afraid. There's a whisper in the wind and a story in the sky, when I'm looking for a lantern to illuminate the night. If you want the secret of freedom and feeling alive, you gotta follow the light. Follow the light.
For those who love great animated classics like The Lion King and Prince of Egypt, David is an awe-inspiring animated musical that depicts David as a spirited boy who fought lions, giants, and even betrayal, depicting how one boy's faith could lead him to be king of Israel. David will be released in theaters just in time for Christmas on December 19th, but your family can get a head start by watching the prequel to the film, Young David, which is streaming exclusively right now on Angel. It's perfect for the entire family and has memorable music. So once you join the Angel Guild, you can start watching Young David right now and prepare the fam for the David film in theaters in December. And by joining the Guild, you'll guarantee 2 free tickets to see it. And it's a great value. Let's be honest, going to the movies isn't all that cheap. But if you're a member of the Angel Guild, not only do you get those 2 free tickets to David, but you'll now have access to every single film or TV series on Angel at your convenience.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, welcome back. I want to spend an hour with James today, given the seriousness of this book and the topic, and I want to thank Newsmax for cutting loose and letting me have a little bit of time. We're going to have him back on Tuesday. He's got an amazing piece coming out this weekend in the New York Times about law for Richard Nixon, all of the topics we've talked about. But the demands of Newsmax today, we've only got James for a half hour. I want to thank the Newsmax team for doing that fantastic work. We love you guys over there. I'm going to come back to originalism, textualism, things we want to get into today. Here's the book is so, and to know that they had another guy that actually had cooperation. The book is so well researched, but as you know, the War and Posse, we have huge readers on his. We did we sent the Buckley book of Sam Tannenhouse to 2 or 3 new printings. We're readers, and it's beautifully written. How do you find the time? You're chief Washington correspondent for Newsmax, which is, in a dogfight with Fox every day for ratings and for breaking news. How do you actually find the time to do the research and to take the time it takes just to make sure this thing is so beautifully written, James?
Well, you're very kind, Steve. Thank you. The short answer is I steal the time from my family. And in the acknowledgement section to this book, I apologize to my wife and 2 sons for how much time this project has required me to be away from them. It was never intended to be a 3-volume book. It was intended to be a concise biography, believe it or not. But as you could tell from our first segment, Steve, I don't do anything concisely. I did want to finish the discussion we were having before the break about why Scalia is such an important American in the history of this country. It's because he persuaded, mostly through dissents, but really through his brilliant writing, his genius, his affability, his literary gifts, his charm, his use of language. And mostly in dissent. He wasn't frequently on the winning sides of cases, but he changed the way we draft the law, we argue the law, and judges and justices decide the law. When he came along, people were talking about the living Constitution and how we need to expand its meaning to account for new phenomena, and how we need to look to the intent behind a law, not just the text of the law. We need to know what they meant. So we should look back at floor speeches on the House and Senate floor, and we should look at committee reports. Scalia said no to all of that. Nobody voted on a floor speech. Nobody voted on a committee report. They voted on the text of a law, and that text doesn't change, and its meaning doesn't change. By the time Scalia died in his 30th term on the court, and we're coming up on the 10th anniversary, February 13, since Antonin Scalia left us, no less a figure than Justice Elena Kagan, an appointee of President Obama, pronounced, because of the Scalia revolution in the law, we are all originalists now.
What was it? Was it in his opinions? Was it in his lectures? Because originalism and textualism, that was a long struggle. What was it that drove that point home? What was it made someone like Kagan, who had been Solicitor General, and from, I think, Dean at Yale Law School, or one of the powers at Yale Law School? Harvard. What was it specifically over time that drove even the most liberal jurists and lawyers to this point?
It was the clarity of the philosophy itself, the idea that the words have meaning, and that meaning doesn't change just because some judge decided the meaning should change. So that was very attractive. And of course, Scalia helped found the Federalist Society, which grew enormously over time and popularized the idea of originalism. You mentioned textualism. It's important that people understand what these concepts are. As I explained in these books, textualism is kind of the metal detector that is used to divine the original meaning of the text. And so you pay close attention to text. If the text is ambiguous, and many laws have clauses and sentences that are ambiguous, that leave us scratching our heads as to what they mean, then Scalia decided that the next feature of originalism, to divine the original meaning of a law, would be that you would have to look at historical traditions and to look at whether there is a long tradition on behalf of something, even if the law is ambiguous. That was his argument against abortion. And Professor Scalia was arguing against Roe v. Wade as early as the 1970s on PBS. And in essence, there was nothing in the Constitution that mentioned abortion, and there was no historical tradition that protected abortion. Quite the contrary. I interviewed Justice Alito for this project. And in addition to the New York Times story that you mentioned, next week in Politico, I'm going to have an op-ed that is based off the interview I did with Justice Alito in Chambers. We talked about the Dobbs opinion, which of course overturned Roe v. Wade. And I asked him, is there a direct line from the writings and speeches of Antonin Scalia in the 70s and 80s to Dobbs? And he said, absolutely, there is. So Scalia's impact is still with us in a very big way. And again, it was his magnetic personality. It was his genius with words. It was his humor. It was his constant evangelism on and off the bench that swayed whole generations of lawyers away from the living Constitution construct from the Warren Court era and over towards an original meaning construct, which is more rooted in the Reagan era.
How did we get, part of this is the first book, and I strongly recommend, particularly if you have young people in your life that are thinking of careers in law or thinking of careers and somehow they want to get some sort of, at least even if they're getting undergraduate education, want to get some legal background. This book is inspiration for anybody, and particularly Scalia's not just rise to greatness, but how he had such a massive impact on American life. So not just for yourself, this book is a great gift for young people, and it's a page turner, so you're going to love it. Given the disasters we had, the suitors, and I even think Sandra Day O'Connor, when I say picked by Republicans that became quite moderates or liberals on the bench, how was Scalia selected, and how did he possibly go 98-0? If you had Scalia today, brother, we would have a firefight, given his Catholicism, given his traditional Catholicism, given everything, it would be a firefight. How did he get selected? And how did he, given all the bad choices that had come around him, and how did he get nominated, confirmed 98-0?
When President Reagan nominated Antonin Scalia to the Supreme Court in June 1986, Scalia had spent 4 years, having been previously nominated by President Reagan, on the D.C. Circuit. That's the Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit. It's the Court of Appeals that's one rung below the Supreme Court. And the D.C. Circuit is often described as the second most powerful court in the United States because its work so frequently shapes the output of the Supreme Court, but also so many justices are plucked from the ranks of the D.C. Circuit. At one time, on the D.C. Circuit, what a murderer's row of judicial talent we had, from Ruth Bader Ginsburg to Antonin Scalia to Robert Bork to Kenneth Starr to James Buckley, Larry Silberman, truly an extraordinary array of judicial talent. And so when the vacancy arose in 1986 because the Chief Justice since 1969, Warren Burger, retired, President Reagan was very adamant that the only types of people who would be able to demonstrate that they shared his judicial philosophy of original meaning, moving away from the living Constitution, expansionist role for judges, would be if they had been judges already on the appellate bench, because they would have a track record as opposed to mere writings, which could be moved away from, different from a judicial opinion. So he chose William Rehnquist, who had been an Associate Justice on the court, nominated by President Nixon, seated since 1972, to elevate him to the Chief Justiceship. Rehnquist, for many years, was the only conservative on the court. He issued so many lone solo dissents that his clerks once gave him a Lone Ranger doll. So it was seen as a kind of a reward for all those lonely years of service in the 60s, in the 70s and 80s. And then they had to decide who were they going to try and nominate for the vacancy created by elevating Rehnquist. And it came down to Bork and Scalia. And the first book, Rise to Greatness, really delves deeply into that friendship between these two brilliant men, that friendship effectively destroyed by the competition between them and by Scalia's elevation in 1986. We know what happened to Bork when he went up a year later. And you asked, how did Scalia get confirmed 98-0, chiefly because of the distracting figure of William Rehnquist. Having been the lone conservative on the court for so long, the Senate Democrats, who claimed control of the Senate in 1986 in the fall election, so it was controlled by the Republicans when Rehnquist and Scalia went up. Nonetheless, they were out for bear with Rehnquist. They hated his opinions for the last 15 years. He was ultimately confirmed after a very ugly process, 65-33. And as Justice Alito told me recently, gosh, if a confirmed nominee got 33 votes, you'd call that, and it went 65-33, that'd be a landslide. That would be bipartisan. In 1986, 33 was the highest number ever recorded for a confirmed nominee. And so Rehnquist, in what they called the Rehnquisition, took all the fire. Scalia, with his charm, sailed through 98-0.
James, where do people, I want everybody to pile in on this book over the weekend. It's released, publishing date is Tuesday. We're going to have you back on. Huge piece in the New York Times. Where do people go to the site to get the book? Where do they find out more about you? What's your social media? How do they get all your hits over at Newsmax?
So you can watch me on Newsmax or Newsmax 2, our streaming service known as N2. You can find me on X at James Rosen TV. That's at James Rosen TV. The book, Scalia, Supreme Court Years, 1986 to 2001, coming out Tuesday. Want to emphasize it's written for all readers, not just for lawyers, and frequently it's hilarious, as in my lunches with Justice Scalia, where we broke bread and wine and he overruled my lunch order. This can be ordered on Amazon and anywhere books are sold. Steve mentioned my coming New York Times piece. That's Sunday morning. It's the secret history of the deep state. It exposes some newly declassified evidence about deep state activity against Richard Nixon, and it makes the parallels with today's scene as well.
No, it's magnificent. Look forward to see you back here on Tuesday. I want to thank Newsmax because I know you're busy. Chief Washington Correspondent for Newsmax, James Rosen. This book is magisterial. I could not recommend a book more. We'll be talking about it throughout the morning and tomorrow morning on Saturday, and we'll break down part of it. James Rosen, we'll see you on Tuesday. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Folks, I got to tell you, the effort to write something like this when you've got a full-time job is just unbelievable. Anyway, short commercial break. Back in the war room in a moment.
This is a monumental moment in American culture. This Sunday, Real America's Voice and Real America's Music come together to do what the mainstream industry won't. Take the music back. Starting at 7 p.m. Eastern, we go live with exclusive free coverage of the Turning Point USA All-American Halftime Show, a patriotic alternative. For years, the left has weaponized the music industry, using it to push politics, erase values, and divide the country. That ends now. This all-American halftime show exists to celebrate American pride, traditional values, and artists who still stand with the heartland. Featuring Kid Rock, Brantley Gilbert, Lee Brice, and Gabby Barrett, artists who connect with real Americans. Join us live for coverage that turns the music industry on its head. Real America's Voice, Real America's Music, the TPUSA All-American Halftime Show.
Hi, my name is Tracy L. from Arizona. I don't stink around in the kitchen when it comes to the news. I watch Real America's Voice, which always serves accurate and reliable updates that are on point with their amazing hosts. So don't find yourself in a pickle by tuning into the fake news. Stick with Real America's Voice.
Hi, my name's Paul Foyer. I'm Foyer04 in the Getter Chat. I love rap for all the Getter, all the War Room Posse, and all of you guys. Love y'all. Bye.
It's Mama Love in northern Minnesota. You know, a collective voice is much louder than a single voice. Thanks, Rav, for giving us a place to chat and connect. See y'all in chat.
Hello, all you Ravagers. I'm Billy Howell, your old buddy Carefree Largo from the chat, and I'm thrilled to be part of the Rav family. When I want to be heard, I use my Real America's Voice.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, if Grace and Mo and Elizabeth, if we can be force multipliers, we'll get you a clip of this. Here's the reason. We have giants in our movement, people that have changed the direction of American history. On the Supreme Court now, we're very fortunate to have two, Associate Justice Thomas, and of course, well, not two now, but Anton and Scalia. He is a giant. The other biographies of him have been obviously not up to par. The first volume of James, 3-volume, Scalia, The Rise to Greatness. And this volume starts at the very first day he takes his seat in the Supreme Court and goes all the way to the hotly contested 2000 election of Bush versus Gore, in the decisions that were made there. So you will absolutely love this book, and you'll learn a lot. This is why the Buckley book was so important. This is why this book's so important. You not just get a feeling for it's just not a biography. It's the type of biographies I love where you actually get a sense of the times that the man or the woman lived in, and very, very powerful. And just to know Rosen, who's an incredibly busy guy, when you're chief White House or chief Washington correspondent now for an operation like Newsmax that's covering Washington, D.C. so intensely, right? To have the time to research and to have the time to write and to take your time and to write beautifully is, to me, is extraordinary. So Scalia, the White House years, I think 86 or 87 to 2001, it's the first part of his time on the Supreme Court, and you will learn a lot of this. We'll also learn, Sheila Matthews, we're learning from you every day. So it's interesting. I try to get a cold open for Sheila Matthews. Folks, one of your favorites and one of our biggest contributors in the years in the wilderness. In fact, he started coming on the show the first week that President Trump was sent to the wilderness in 2021, right? That first week it was Russ Vogt. And then Russ formed CRA, and we were big sponsors of CRA, all do their conferences and always talk, and just magnificent. Of course, so many of the people from CRA went into the government, particularly into OMB. They got a great team over there now as the second wave. They're doing magnificent work. But Russ Vogt, there was an assassination attempt on Russ Vogt. A guy went to his house with a gun, and I guess neighbors called, and the police eventually came, and he's arrested. But he's got a commonality. When I read this, I reached out to the one and only Sheila Matthews. Sheila, and I want to continue to drive this because you are almost like a voice in the wilderness, but the dots all connect. Tell me about this guy and what connects him to, like, Butler. This is a problem. This is not a problem. This is a crisis. And it's a crisis about how the radical Democrats and this cultural radicalness of these people obviously is trying to change the culture, but they're also trying to destroy, I think, young men. Walk me through. And by the way, we could not find a clip. I don't think anybody's covered this today actually on television. We're trying to be as thorough as possible, but we couldn't find a good clip to use. There's a couple of newspaper articles, but they're buried back in the tirades. The director of Office of Management and Budget and one of the 2 or 3 most important people in this administration, an assassination attempt at his home, and now the guy's locked up and being charged. But why does this connect directly to Butler, ma'am?
Well, because Colin DeMarco from Maryland, the man who went to Russ's house, was treated. He was in a psychiatric facility, and he was diagnosed. And so we don't know who treated him, what meds he was on. And that's the common issue here. Like Butler, in Daily Mail this morning is J.D. Vance making these comments regarding not knowing the motive of the alleged would-be assassin, Thomas Crooks. His parents were behavioral health experts. How did they miss that he was building a bomb in his bedroom next door? Why can we not question him? When now next week we're going to have a case in front of Georgia where a 14-year-old boy killed 4 people, injured 11 in the state of Georgia, 14 years old. He's going to make a plea deal, and they're going to charge the father for giving him access to weapons. Who gave him access to the mental health diagnosis and the drugs? What do his mental health records show? So the commonality here is we have a billion-dollar industry that is feeding off our children and pumping them filled with mind-altering drugs, and we cannot get behind the scenes there. We can't get to the treating psychiatrists. Who are these treating psychiatrists?
Hang on. I know the theory of the case and it hangs together. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Why can't we do? We've done it now. You see, in the transgender ideology, we're getting to just had the $2 million court ruling. The people, the Terry Schillings, those guys against the transgender radical ideology have used a sharp enough stick to puncture it and get through it. What do we need to do? Because this is outrageous, and you see these shootings happen all the time. You never get to who the doctors were, what they prescribe, what the drugs are, what the big pharma is making on this. Why is their cartel cabal that strong that we can't push through this, ma'am?
Well, the transgender issue falls under psychiatry. So I would say that is the umbrella that we need to go after. And the state and federal government is in bed with this industry. So that's why we can't get access to the treating psychiatrists. They're training the FBI agents. They're training our teachers. So it is a big issue here. And the bottom line is we need the mental health records. And we shouldn't be assuming that the motive is not traceable. It is. It is to, if we're concerned about the guns, we should be more concerned about what led that child, the 14-year-old, that's going to make a plea deal. So we're not going to get access to those records in Georgia of the little boy who picked up his father's gun. They're going to charge the father. Yet in Butler, those parents aren't dragged in. Okay.
It's amazing.
So we have parents just like with the ones in Utah. They're not drawn in.
You're going to see. I've been telling people, wait to the trial. You're not going to have a trial in Utah. They're going to cut you watch Georgia. They're going to cut the same type of deal to get away from the death penalty and get a life in prison without parole. You're never going to see any of this stuff at trial. I've been saying this from the beginning. Sheila, I know you got to bounce. You've got a big anniversary coming up, a big event. I want everybody that's in the area or wants to come in from around the country to support you. Where do they go?
They go to ablechild25.com, ablechild25.com, and they could get tickets there. It's going to be in West Palm Beach. And really, people, we need signs on this petition to get federal hearings. We need legislation. We're trying to kill massive bills coming in, and we have a proposed bill. We need a sponsor in Georgia. So lawmakers, please start listening to us so we can get to some safety for these children. So, ablechild25.com. We're celebrating 25 years, two moms who started out of the abyss. So we need your help. We want to stay, valuable to children, and we want to help the government. We want to help. We want to save lives. We want these mass killings.
What we want to do is stop this destruction, particularly of young men. It's bad in women, but young men that try to destroy. Sheila, one more time, where do people go?
ablechild25.com for the tickets and ablechild.org for our petition. So thank you so much, Steve. We're honored to be a part of it.
No, it's outrageous. Thank you, ma'am. You look at the connectivity. Look at the commonality in all this. All these young men are on these psychiatric drugs. Who prescribes this? Well, who's accountable for this? It's constant. Also, Russ Vought, the guy said he did it because Russ Vought was one of the key architects of Project 2025. Have you seen an outrage in the community in Washington, D.C.? Have you seen an outrage in the media that a courageous public servant is an assassin? A guy goes to his house to assassinate him, and just by the grace of God, Russ doesn't happen to be there, and some neighbors, I guess, turned this guy in, and there's some footage on it, and the authorities are involved now. It's just like in Butler. We don't know. I mean, the Butler situation is a travesty. And I keep saying, and Posobiec and these guys can prove me wrong, I just don't think you're ever going to get to a trial in Utah. I think they're going to pull the same thing they're going to pull here. They're going to try to cut some plea deal, get him off of capital murder, away from a murder charge, and we're never going to get that. We're never going to get the facts. And I think there we have to see the facts. We have to see all the details, all the interconnections. Because I'm still not, at least what's been out there, I just don't believe a guy got up there because he thought his tranny, roommate or whatever, however you define this other guy who hasn't been charged with anything, no accessory, no accessory either before or after the fact, nothing. It's just still this, was it Tyler Robinson? I'm just not buying it. Maybe they'll put out evidence otherwise. I just don't think you're ever going to go to trial. In this situation, the psychiatric drugs and destroying these young men we got to get to the bottom of it. I don't know do we have the clip of Betts? Can I play Betts's clip? Do we have that? My great producer. Do I have it? Look, let me play that before I bring on Thayer for a second. Let's go ahead and play. This is from Ben Harnwell, does the Friday show, tries to coordinate 6 o'clock, all the great reporting coming out of and things coming out of Europe. This is very important when we talk about civil war. Let's go and watch.
Yeah, I do want to stress that I'm really not making a party political point here, or I'm not trying to. That's not most of what I'm talking about. In fact, all I'm talking about are structural issues. This is not political point scoring. I'm not, trying to. I'm not trying to be that sort of pundit. And your earlier remarks about the uniparty are entirely accurate. And people understand that to be the case, which is what is fueling this. Or I think there's the fundamental thing that is fueling this pressure cooker you talk about, because once people have fully internalized that voting doesn't matter, then that is an expression of basically a complete lack of confidence in the legitimacy of the existing system. It is a complete lack of confidence in the ability of politics to solve collective action problems in that society. And it's really hard to row back from that. And to the point of your specific question now about reform, I have to say I'm not terribly optimistic on this front. Reform as currently just doesn't look to me to possess the sense of urgency, to possess the desire to conduct the sort of radical changes to the society which would be implied by a reasonable apprehension of the problems which we face. Moreover, even if we get to the next election...
Professor Betts, let me just clarify that. You think that these forces are in the UK
I want to come back to the punchline. I want to come back with a punchline with Ben Harnwell and bring in Dr. Thayer. Tej Gill's going to join us. Orrin Cass has got a magnificent piece. 2 big pieces coming from the New York Times over the weekend. Orrin Cass basically calls out the entire finance industry, Wall Street, as a complete and total grift. And what should you do with the grifters? We're going to take a short commercial break here in the War Room on a Friday, Super Bowl weekend. Back in a moment.
This is a monumental moment in American culture. This Sunday, Real America's Voice and Real America's Music come together to do what the mainstream industry won't. Take the music back. Starting at 7 p.m. Eastern, we go live with exclusive free coverage of the Turning Point USA All-American Halftime Show, a patriotic alternative. For years, the left has weaponized the music industry, using it to push politics, erase values, and divide the country. That ends now. This all-American halftime show exists to celebrate American pride, traditional values, and artists who still stand with the heartland. featuring Kid Rock, Brantley Gilbert, Lee Brice, and Gabby Barrett, artists who connect with real Americans. Join us live for coverage that turns the music industry on its head. Real America's Voice, Real America's Music, the TPUSA All-American Halftime Show.
Hi, my name is Tracy L. from Arizona. I don't stink around in the kitchen when it comes to the news. I watch Real America's Voice, which always serves accurate and reliable updates that are on point with their amazing hosts. So don't find yourself in a pickle by tuning into the fake news. Stick with Real America's Voice.
Hi, my name's Paul Foyer. I'm Foyer04 in the Getter Chat. I love rap for all the Getter, all the War Room Posse, and all of you guys. Love y'all. Bye.
It's Mama Love in northern Minnesota. You know, a collective voice is much louder than a single voice. Thanks, Rav, for giving us a place to chat and connect. See y'all in chat.
Hello, all you Ravagers. I'm Billy Howell, your old buddy Carefree Largo from the chat, and I'm thrilled to be part of the Rav family. When I want to be heard, I use my Real America's Voice.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Crypto is in a, how do I say this, historic plunge. Gold is not. And I think that's the difference between something being a hedge, an entity being a hedge, and maybe not. And you don't want to find out about this when it's plunging. We've done something different here, I think, than other people that just, hey, go buy gold, buy gold, buy gold. We want to teach you. The purpose here with Birch Gold over the last 4 or 5 years is to teach you to understand the process, not the price of gold, but the process that drives the value, both as a hedge against times of financial turbulence, but now as a new kind of financial asset class, which has happened as the central banks have stepped up here, and the U.S. dollar comes under assault. We started this at the beginning of the Biden regime, the illegitimate Biden regime. Why? We only had an inkling. First thing he did was about opening the borders. We knew it was going to be detrimental to the country and insane. I shouldn't say insane. It was logical for them because they wanted to destroy the American Republic. What he did in the spending was to destroy the financial stability of the country and destroy the dollar. 25% depreciation, devaluation, lack of purchasing power in the dollar in 4 years. It's one of the reasons the BRICS nations, who are all enemies, virtually all enemies of the United States, led by the Chinese Communist Party, looking at alternatives, as we've reported, and we sent Philip Patrick and his team down to Rio for the Rio reset. But even, I think the BRICS nations, as much as they hate the United States, they do have kind of a point when they talk about an alternative, given what Biden did to the dollar. Anyway, that's a long-winded way of saying, talk to Birch Gold. Many ways you can get there. End of the Dollar Empire. Go to birchgold.com, promo code Bannon, End of the Dollar Empire. 7 free installments. The 8th installment is on my desk, and we're going to be getting it out for all of you, and we'll have Philip Patrick on here to discuss. Most important thing, or whether you take your phone out and text Bannon, B-A-N-N-O-N, at 989898. Get you to the ultimate guide for investing in gold and precious metals in the age of Trump, including silver. It gets you access to Philip Patrick and the team. And they love it when the War and Posse connects, and you don't have to buy gold. We're going to teach you the process of what drives the value of it and why the guys at Birch Gold think there's a long way to go in that valuation. But you come to your own decisions. What we're going to do is put the information out there. I want to finish with Ben Harnwell. Betts is the tenured professor at King's College and one of the world's leading experts, if not the world's leading expert on modern warfare in every aspect of it, including color revolutions and civil war. Let's go ahead and play Ben again, and I'm going to bring in Dr. Bradley Thayer.
Professor Betts, let me just clarify that. You think that these forces are in the UK are so already entrenched and the momentum is there that not even an eventual hypothetical reform government would be able to stop the civil war in the UK that you see, that you hypothesize as being on the horizon? It's that bad?
Yeah, I don't see that. Yes, in answer to your question, it's that bad. As I said, the issues are structural. They're not casually political. They're not superficially political. They're deeply social, and the bottom line is the political system is not able to cure itself.
This is why Trump, that was from last Friday. This is why President Trump won in 2016. There's something deeply wrong with the American political system, including the Republicans. This is why they're controlled opposition. This is why now the Wall Street Journal is hammering President Trump every day. And look, people can throw the toys out of the pram. They can pull their hair out. They can cry. It doesn't make a difference. We're never going to allow ever again to have the globalists and the elitists and the people that hate this country to steal another election. Those days are over, and we got to rev it up to make sure we hold accountable who stole 2020. Look what they did to our country, financially, culturally. 15 or 20 million illegal alien invaders. Look at these cities. Dr. Thayer, you've written a quite brilliant piece. I'm so glad the Federalist has put it up. I just love the Federalist site about why you kind of take Betts's theory and you take it one step farther and saying, hey, it's coming and we have to win it, and President Trump has to lead us to victory. Talk to us about it, sir.
Yeah, Steve, thanks. The piece is available at the Federalist today, and the two arguments. One, there's a civil war in the West. From London to Texas, we see that. From Ireland to Italy, from Canada to Australia, we see the same thing. We have an increasingly authoritarian political class, and we have their principal weapon of immigration, of flooding Europe, Canada, Australia, the United States, with many tens of millions of immigrants. So we're locked in a civil war between those who want to destroy the West and those who want to save it. It's an old struggle, really goes back to the Bolsheviks 100 years ago who started it, but it's being realized now. Now, what needs to be done? Well, the Trump administration needs to save Western civilization because he's the only one who can, and he's opposed by Australian government, Canadian government, the EU, and Keir Starmer in the UK. What the Trump administration has to do is right now, today, get serious about developing strategies to stop this and to turn it around through remigration. So there's much that has to be done. First, tariffs. Professor Betts makes a great argument, but he seems to assume it's the 11th commandment is that Europe is going to go Muslim, right? That's not true at all. It's a result of policy decisions, and policies can be reversed if the costs to the EU and the costs to Keir Starmer's government in the UK are high enough. So let's get Peter Navarro to put 500% tariffs on the EU. Okay, that's going to start moving the European Union in the right direction. Secondly, let's start developing a strategy.
Hang on. Ho. I want to go through all of them. We're going to take a short break. Are you saying put 500% tariffs on the EU to force them to have policies that reverse the immigration of Muslims into Europe, into England particularly, which I think is now going to a significant part of the population? Is that, I got 30 seconds. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Not only reverse, but to do so on a truncated timetable, right? To do so with next week, they're going to be at this number. The week after, they're going to be at double that number.
Okay, hang on for a second. Hang on. I'm gonna take time. We're gonna get it all done. We're gonna take a short break. Orrin Cass is also going to join us. I'm gonna recommend right now we set up an Office of Remigration, and I'd strongly recommend to President Trump and the administration that Dr. Bradley Thayer be the very first person to step in there and take that position. Short break. Back in a moment.
This is a monumental moment in American culture. This Sunday, Real America's Voice and Real America's Music come together to do what the mainstream industry won't. Take the music back. Starting at 7 p.m. Eastern, we go live with exclusive pre-coverage of the Turning Point USA All-American Halftime Show, a patriotic alternative. For years, the left has weaponized the music industry, using it to push politics, erase values, and divide the country. That ends now. This all-American halftime show exists to celebrate American pride, traditional values, and artists who still stand with the heartland. Featuring Kid Rock, Bradley Gilbert, Lee Brice, and Gabby Barrett, artists who connect with real Americans. Join us live for coverage that turns the music industry on its head. Real America's Voice, Real America's Music, the TPUSA All-American Halftime Show.
Hi, my name is Tracy L. from Arizona. I don't stink around in the kitchen when it comes to the news. I watch Real America's Voice, which always serves accurate and reliable updates that are on point with their amazing hosts. So don't find yourself in a pickle by tuning into the fake news. Stick with Real America's Voice.
Hi, my name's Paul Foyer. I'm Foyer04 in the Getter Chat. I love rap for all the Getter, all the War Room Posse, and all of you guys. Love y'all. Bye.
It's Mama Love in northern Minnesota. You know, a collective voice is much louder than a single voice. Thanks, Rav, for giving us a place to chat and connect. See y'all in chat.
This is the primal scream of a dying regime. Pray for our enemies, because we're going medieval on these people. You're just not got a free shot on all these networks lying about the people. The people have had a belly full of it. I know you don't like hearing that. I know you try to do everything in the world to stop that, but you're not going to stop it. It's going to happen.
And where do people like that go to share the big lie? MAGA media. I wish in my soul, I wish that any of these people had a conscience.
Ask yourself, what is my task and what is my purpose? If that answer is to save my country, this country will be saved.
War Room. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
It's February. It is Friday, 6 February in the year of our Lord 2026. There is a method to my madness this morning on the show. Because I wanted to talk, we have all this conversation about Civil War and the path to Civil War. We've had the clip from Ben Harnwell's amazing interview with Dr. Betts at King's College, where he's the tenured professor of modern warfare, and I think considered one of the leading experts on modern warfare in the broad context of what that means, because modern warfare is not simply kinetic. It is also unrestricted warfare, as we've taught you over the last 5 or 6 years on the show. We start with, but it's also about institutions. This is why we start today with James Rosen, the chief Washington correspondent for Newsmax, in the second volume of his magisterial biography of one of the greatest Americans, not simply of modern times, but I think of all time, and that is Associate Justice Scalia. The second volume is the Supreme Court years. If the first volume's The Rise to Greatness, it takes you all the way through Scalia's life, his confirmation hearing. The second volume, you pick up the first day he joined the Supreme Court and goes all the way through the 2000 election, the contested election there in Bush v. Gore, in the decisions of the Supreme Court. I can't recommend a book more highly. And also, for young people in your life, this is like the Buckley book. Give Sam Tannenhouse's book, which we sent to the second, third, fourth printing. This audience and the feedback I've gotten is fantastic. James Rosen is the same type of writer. These are books that almost read like novels, and you just want to turn the page to do that. But it was about the institution and how fundamental Associate Justice Scalia was in changing the institution of the Supreme Court, particularly about originalism and about textualism. And that's why you're going to learn a lot, and you'll understand the presence. I'm very proud that I sat on the 5-man selection committee as the only non-lawyer for the selection of Gorsuch to replace Justice Scalia after he passed away. Of course, you can't replace people like Scalia. You can't replace people like Associate Justice Thomas, just like you can't replace Charlie Kirk and you can't replace Andrew Breitbart. There's some people that come along, they're just unique and totally unique individuals and can't be replaced. But you will learn a lot. Dr. Thayer and Tage Gill are going to return here momentarily. We're going to talk about the piece in the Federalist today from our own Dr. Bradley Thayer that is quite extraordinary about this potential civil war in the West. Of course, Dr. Betts at King's College says not only is it coming, but the election of Nigel Farage as reform. Remember, what Nigel has done is extraordinary. He's taken a party basically he created, and now, as I think 2x what the Tories are, and the Tories have been around for 250 years, longer maybe. I think they're around 50 years. So it's extraordinary. He says that will only slow it down, but the path in the United Kingdom is set. When we talk about institutions, one of the ones we talk about so much is global capital, the global capital markets, finance. The Great Oren Cass, I guess it's coming out. It's online now. It's coming out on Sunday in the New York Times. You eviscerate the Wall Street, the lords of easy money, and you just say right in the headline, it's a grift, and they ought to be treated like grifters. One, how did the New York Times publish this? And number two, walk us through the piece.
Well, I should say, actually, it has been a long time in coming, but the Times editor I work with was great and actually really encouraged focusing on this point that, there's so much discussion about bad actors on Wall Street, right? Like, oh, these looters or, this fraud and so forth. And I think there's a much broader, more important point, which is that it's not the edge case. It's not the lawbreaker. It's the entire exercise. It is the fundamentals of, what we have in private equity, what we have in hedge funds, what we have now in what's called private credit. It's just all this stuff that has been layered atop the actual legitimate purposes of financial markets that doesn't create any value and yet ends up with tremendous wealth. And if you're not creating any value and you end up with tremendous wealth, it's safe to assume that means you just took that money from somewhere else. And I think that is one of the fundamental problems we have in our economy today, is one of the best ways to make money, where we're sending a lot of our best talent, people who could be starting great businesses, creating good jobs. Instead, they're going to trade money around in circles, and somehow we sort of, not only do we tolerate it, in a lot of cases we celebrate it and take it seriously as a sign that something useful must be going on.
Look, the reason, one of the principal reasons President Trump won on 8 November of 2016, or early in the morning, he was declared the winner of November 9th, is the fuse that was lit off by the financial crash in 2008. Now, because of the efforts to bail out the system, they consolidated wealth and power. I mean, Obama, the most progressive president in history, supposedly had a knee-jerk reaction with Tim Geithner and people around him guiding him, because he was basically a constitutional law professor, didn't really understand capital markets, but they came up with policies, as has been shown in the great book Lords of Easy Money, that essentially bailed out the system and bailed out the wealthy with the greatest concentration of wealth in mankind's history. However, there were supposed to be reforms made. So are you saying today that we're now in, 17, 18 years later, we're in a situation that, because capitalism should be, the fundamental part of capitalism should be free and fair and accessible capital markets? Are you saying we don't actually have a capitalist system, that this is more corporatist than we even scream about here in War Room? Or is it at the basis we do have capitalism with just a lot of grift on top, or is the whole system rotten to its core?
I think it's more that we have capitalism with a lot of grift on top. You know, one thing I try to emphasize in the piece, and one of the, you know, they find the title that will get the most people to click on it. The working title was Saving Capitalism from the Capitalists, because I think the basic system of capitalism is still a good way, the best way anyone knows to structure an economy. And for that matter, you know, healthy financial markets are a really important thing. We need to have markets that allow savers to consolidate their savings and to deploy that capital to productive uses. The problem is that that's not what financial markets do today. In fact, even as financial markets, as the financial sector has grown to be an ever larger part of the economy, more of GDP, more of profits, you know, attracting more of the top talent, generating more of the richest people, there has been no correlating increase in investment. To the contrary, the actual real investment that we get in the economy keeps declining. And so I think whereas there's been this idea, certainly promoted by the folks on Wall Street, promoted by a lot of the folks you were describing in the Obama world, certainly in the Bush world also, certainly a lot of people in the Trump world, there's this idea that, well, if the financial sector is doing incredibly well, that must somehow mean the economy is doing well, right? Well, look how high the stock market went up. That must mean we're doing well. Those things have just become entirely disconnected. And so the question is, can we essentially put the financial sector back in its place? Say we want to have a healthy financial sector, but that's defined by whether you're actually doing your frankly pretty boring job of consolidating capital, deploying capital well, so that the real action is happening in the real economy where it can actually benefit the typical family.
How do we make these, because I argue we have a capitalist system with almost no capitalists, because 80 or 90% of the American people really don't have access to it, don't participate in it, and 50% of the country is abject, been here for generations, and have no access to this. Where do you think you're slipping into what Lyndon LaRouche used to talk about all the time, about productivity, and he's got to be focused on manufacturing, and you got to get away from this? I mean, he was mad as a hatter, but some of the things he had to say were quite profound. Do you think it's those types of reforms that have to take place?
Well, I think it's important to say this is also the stuff that, you know, Adam Smith was talking about and Abraham Lincoln was talking about, and that, you know, most of our great economists, most of our great political leaders until quite recently all recognize. For that matter, you know, many of our great popes have recognized this. It has always been understood that an out-of-control financial sector is a concern, is something that you're going to get if you don't pay attention to it, and is going to be a plague on the real useful kind of capitalism. And so I think, you know, one thing we're starting to do a lot better.
Hang on. So I want to make sure we name this as a construct for people. So we're dancing around. It's the American system. It's what Hamilton, and I say, along with the Declaration of Independence, something that doesn't get as much play that almost should, is Hamilton's report on manufacturers. And you had, you know, Andrew Jackson was part of that. Lincoln, as a Whig, this whole party stood for this, the American system. And I kind of say this is what Lyndon LaRouche's people also talk about. Talk to me about the American system. Why is the alternative quite different than late-stage finance capitalism that we find ourselves in this kind of cul-de-sac?
Yeah, the American system, as you just said exactly right, is what built America into the greatest country and economy in the world, that led to the, you know, unbelievable prosperity of the middle class. It was obviously a capitalist system. It was a free market system, but it was one that recognized that not anything you do that generates a profit is equally valuable. And also that you really do actually need a role for government, that you need to make sure that domestic industry is strong in competition against other countries. You need to certainly invest a lot in things like, you know, infrastructure. I mean, whether it was railroads and canals back in the day or, you know, electrification, all of these things were massive public projects. And you need a financial system that is specifically structured and regulated in the public interest to make sure that what is happening in financial markets doesn't become an end unto itself, right? You're not trading for the sake of trading, but that it is actually fulfilling its function of helping things to happen in the real world. And that is the tradition that the U.S. followed all the way through the middle of the 20th century. It's only in the last few decades that we gave into this idea that no, markets in and of themselves, whatever they do is always going to be the most efficient and productive thing. And if we just get out of the way and, let the people on Wall Street cook, as the kids would say, that will generate the most prosperity for everybody. And it's just not true. There's nothing in economic theory that would say it's true. There's nothing in human history that would say it's true. And I think we've really paid the price for going along with that instead of being willing to say, as I say in the piece, the people on Wall Street have no clothes. They're parading around naked. A lot of what they do is ridiculous. It's clearly not valuable. And, we need the right regulation, but we also need a culture that's willing to say that and that we deserve better.
How do you, if you got a meeting and we had you over for a cup of coffee with Scott Bessent, Secretary of Treasury, before you guys went to the White House, we got a minute here on this side, and I tell you what, hang on, why don't you just hang on for a second, because I want to get to the recommendations here. Because when you talk about civil war, in the civil war in the middle of the 19th century, these were some of the issues that were underlying. Because remember the plantation aristocracy I would call it the Tidewater plantation aristocracy, particularly around places like Charleston. Remember at the time when the Civil War started, I think there were more what would be associated today as billionaires per capita in Charleston than any place on earth. They believed that the investment was in human capital. That was what slavery was about. They thought owning humans was a capital asset. And then one of the big differences in Abraham Lincoln and what their idea was that you had to build canals and railroads, and you needed some sort of either government regulation to do that, or maybe even potential financing or helping with financing. And that was one of the big rifts they were high tariffs in the North, and of course no tariffs, some sort of partnership with the British in the South, what became the Confederacy. Orrin Cass has a brilliant piece in this weekend's New York Times. I want everybody to get access to it. He's going to, on the other side, he's going to give us some recommendations for the president. Next.
I got American faith in America's heart.
This is a monumental moment in American culture. This Sunday, Real America's Voice and Real America's Music come together to do what the mainstream industry won't. Take the music back. Starting at 7 p.m. Eastern, we go live with exclusive free coverage of the Turning Point USA All-American Halftime Show, a patriotic alternative. For years, the left has weaponized the music industry, using it to push politics, erase values, and divide the country. That ends now. This all-American halftime show exists to celebrate American pride, traditional values, and artists who still stand with the heartland. Featuring Kid Rock, Brantley Gilbert, Lee Brice, and Gabby Barrett, artists who connect with real Americans. Join us live for coverage that turns the music industry on its head. Real America's Voice, Real America's Music, the TPUSA All-American Halftime Show.
Hi, my name is Tracy L. from Arizona. I don't stink around in the kitchen when it comes to the news. I watch Real America's Voice, which always serves accurate and reliable updates that are on point with their amazing hosts. So don't find yourself in a pickle by tuning into the fake news. Stick with Real America's Voice.
Hi, my name's Paul Foyer. I'm Foyer04 in the Getter Chat. I love rap for all the Getter, all the War Room Posse, and all of you guys. Love y'all. Bye.
It's Mama Love in northern Minnesota. A collective voice is much louder than a single voice. Thanks, Rev, for giving us a place to chat and connect. See y'all in chat.
Hello, all all you Ravagers. I'm Billy Howell, your old buddy Carefree Largo from the chat, and I'm thrilled to be part of the Rav family. When I want to be heard, I use my real America's voice.
Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, gold's back up at 5,000. Not the daily price. It's the process. Take your phone out, text. It's an easy way to do it. Get access to the ultimate guide for investing in gold and precious metals. There's no obligation, totally free. You get to talk to Philip Patrick and the team over at Birch Gold. Bannon, Bannon, 989898. Do that today. Make sure you make that a weekend thought experiment. How about that? Also, 90% of your home, of your net worth is tied up in your home if you're lucky enough to own one. And remember, the average age of a first-time home buyer in this country is 40 years old. President Trump, Scott Besson, working on many programs to make sure that we get that down to, let's have something with the 2 in front of it, maybe 25. How's that sound? HomeTitleLock.com, promo code Steve. You get 14-day free trial on access to the $1 million triple lock protection. With AI, with cyber, with rogue lawyers, rogue accountants, rogue family members. You cannot trust anybody when it comes to that home title. You just can't. You got to make sure it's just you and your title. The way to do that is HomeTitleLock.com. HomeTitleLock.com, promo code Steve. Make sure you go today and talk to Natalie Dominguez and the team about the $1 million triple lock protection. Warren Cass. I think best, normally we put people in the Oval Office. I think this one, you go to Treasury and you talk to Besson. Besson comes out, he's a hedge fund guy, been a very safe pair of hands. At one time, they were talking about he was going to wear 2 hats, maybe Federal Reserve chair and Treasury if they could work it out. Looks like they couldn't. So Kevin Warsh is going to take that spot. A big fan of Kevin's, known him a long time. Talk to me, the 2 or 3 things you and Scott Besson are going to talk about when you're there to make sure that we get this to be a truly capitalist system with every American a capitalist. What are you going to talk about?
Well, in the context of these issues in the financial markets, I think number one is we're going to just crack down on the stuff that is not useful. So instead of taxing people who actually build businesses that are successful, we're going to put the tax on transactions. So if you're just trading all day in the market, we'd much rather tax that than somebody who's building a business. I think number 2 is information. Like, so much of this is done in ways where there's just no way to even track, okay, how are these things performing? Is anything useful being done or not? We need to have much better disclosure on how these firms are performing, who's making the money, who's collecting the fees. And then number 3, we got to stay focused on the other side. We got to stay focused on making it more attractive to do productive things. And we're starting to see that in chips, in ships, in critical minerals. I think that's a place where the Trump administration has been making huge strides, and we have to keep pushing on that. Every person who goes and builds a real business, builds things in this country, is helping us all. Every person who goes to Wall Street and starts a hedge fund is not.
There's many hedge funds, I think, as McDonald's franchises, if somebody told me. Anyway, that'd be a great conversation. That'd be a quite interesting conversation with Scott Besson. We talk about, I think we got to tax transactions. Brother, you're getting to the core of the problem. All of a sudden, they're not going to have those big castles out in the Hamptons. Warren Cass, you are a troublemaker, sir, but you come with a high-powered brain, so we love having you on. Where do people get you?
My organization is American Compass. We publish a great magazine called Commonplace at commonplace.org. Definitely subscribe to that in your inbox a few times a week. And I am on Twitter, or X as they call it now, or an _Cass.
Well, I'd love to have you back on. I want to see the thing published. Got to get my print edition of the Times this Sunday to see this, and then have you back on next week. Thank you, Oren. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Wow. We're going to tax transactions. Hello. It's cutting to the chase. Talk about this. Dr. Thayer. Well, first off, do I have Tej up? Is I have Tej Gill with me? Tej Gill. The coming civil war. Dr. Betts talked about it. It's coming in the United Kingdom. You see it's happening in Paris. I've said this for a couple of years now. You're not going to veer off of this. In the United States, this is one of the reasons we're in Texas. One of the reasons we're focused on prohibiting and banning Sharia law in the great state of Texas. Your thoughts about how do we divert, Tej, because you're a man of peace, spent your, 20 years being a man of war, but you're a man of peace now with a great coffee company. How do we avert civil war, sir?
We need to get the people out that hate America, and they're being funded by guys like George Soros, Alex Soros. I read Bradley Thayer's article. A lot of this stuff comes out of England, the European Union, but let's not forget the radical Islam in the Middle East, and then we got China pushing it from their side. So, we have the communists, we got the Muslims, and then we have these left-wing radicals in the European Union pushing their ideology on America, and this, 20 million illegal immigrants, that's disputable, 10 to 20 million, somewhere in there. And these people, they do not assimilate in America. They start up their own cultures. They start up no-go zones. They don't like Americans. They don't like America. They're sending money back to their own countries.
Hang on. How many tours did you...
I like this whole re-immigration theory. I love the re-immigration office, and then we need to turn up the volume on the deportation and deporting these people. It's slowed down. It started out with a bang last year, but the deportations have actually slowed down. We need to turn up the volume on the deportation, start the re-immigration office, and get these people out of our country. When immigrants used to come here to America, they used to go to a 2-year, 3-year program, and they actually would assimilate. They'd learn all about our culture. They'd learn about the history of America. And a lot of these people, most of these people actually loved America, and they were proud Americans, the immigrants, and they don't do that anymore.
You spent how many tours? Tell me again, remind me, how many tours in defense of your country did you spend over in Islamic Nation, sir?
16 times in Iraq and Afghanistan from 2001 to 2013.
Did you see anything in those cultures or societies you thought would be appropriate for, like, say, a culture like the great state of Texas, sir?
No, Steve. No. If you spend time in, you go places like Iraq, you have the Sunnis, the Shiites, and the Kurds, and there's a civil war there, and it's everybody's against everybody there. Everybody's killing each other. Saddam Hussein ruled that place with an iron fist, and as soon as he's gone, it was complete chaos. And then Afghanistan, like I've told you before, we used to call them stone stackers with machine guns. They're a primitive culture. They live out in the middle of nowhere, most of these places. And then in the city, in Kabul, the capital, there's car bombs daily, there's people being killed. And now that the Taliban's back in power. So we spent 20 years in Afghanistan to push the Taliban and Al-Qaeda out. And guess what? The Taliban and Al-Qaeda are back in power after 20 years. So, but through failed leadership of Barack Obama and Joe Biden, it's nothing changed there. They're actually more powerful now. We left $85 billion in America hardware in Afghanistan and pulled out like a disgrace to our country. So no, there's nothing in these countries that we need to bring to the United States. There's nothing we can take from Afghanistan. Not their farming, not their culture, nothing.
Yeah. Hang on for 1 second.
Maybe one thing we can take some guerrilla warfare tactics from, but that's about it.
Dr. Bradley Thayer, I want everybody to read this essay. It's very well thought through. As people saying, hey, this civil war can't be reversed. You say, no, it can be, but we got to win it. Walk me through your other points.
Absolutely, Steve. So the cause of this is well understood. It's a Bolshevik ideology in a neo-Bolshevik form, which is the ideology of the European elite, in the Canadian elite, and in Australia, as well as among the Democrats in the U.S. The Trump administration has warned the EU. The Warsaw speech in July of 2017, the national security strategy, which came out in December of this year, of 2025, and then the Davos speech that President Trump gave in January, all warned the European Union that they don't get to destroy Western civilization, right? That Western civilization also belongs to the United States, it belongs to Americans, and we get a veto. What did the EU do? They gave President Trump the middle finger on Tuesday, January 27th, 2026, right? In Spain, they granted over 500,000 residency permits, and in India, Ursula von der Leyen opened up the migration agreement, which is going to allow tens of millions of Indians to enter the European Union. The EU has been warned. So now President Trump has got to solve this problem to save Western civilization. First, increase the costs to the European Union. Peter Navarro's a magician. He's got his bag of tariffs. Let's start employing them against the European Union. Secondly, because they'll probably absorb the costs of the tariff, right? Their ideology and their determination to destroy the West is very strong. Britain is part of the Five Eyes, intelligence cooperation. We can restrict intelligence cooperation. It's not done lightly, but they've really got to feel the pain because these agreements are coming into effect now. The EU agreement will come in 2027. So by the time President Trump leaves office, you could have many more tens of millions of Indians living in the European Union. And of course, Spain 500,000 is taking place almost immediately. And there's always essentially family unification. So 500,000 really means 4 million plus when we're talking about that. So restrict intelligence for the UK. Thirdly, military cooperation, again, not done lightly. We fought wars together, we have a long history together, but that's really going to get their attention, which is what we need to do. This cannot go on. Western civilization is in the balance. Fourth, Brexit, right? Let's have multiple Brexits, right? Ireland perhaps should think about exiting the European Union. And there may be elements or points where the U.S. could assist in that regard, as well as developing new trade zones, right? So that the Irish population doesn't incur a cost, economic cost from that. And lastly, Office of Remigration. Let's strategize, let's coordinate, and let's develop policies.
Hang on. I want to come back. I love that office idea. We're going to drill down more. Tage Gill, Dr. Bradley Thayer, Andrew Colvette from Charlie Kirk Show is going to join us. Also, we're going to bring the truckers in.
The radical left knows exactly what they're doing. They want to steal the election. We're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue, and we're going to the Capitol. They need to take back our country.
Events in Washington have taken a violent and tumultuous turn.
January 6th wasn't just a moment in history. For thousands of Americans, it was the moment their voices were taken.
It's insurrection.
They were persecuted, hunted.
Seditious conspiracy.
But behind prison walls, something unexpected happened. They found their voice again.
Started singing the national anthem.
We took it up to him at Mar-a-Lago. He goes, I'll put my voice on it.
Our supporters made this go platinum.
Real America's Voice is telling the real story of January 6th like you've never seen it before.
Everybody, this must be peaceful.
This is not the story you were shown.
I take responsibility.
This is the story they live.
Government entrapment scheme that this actually was.
The J6 Patriots are no longer staying silent. They are speaking, they are standing, and they are telling the truth.
You can't kill us. You can't beat us.
Scan the QR code or visit RealAmericasVoice.com. Real America's Voice presents The Sleeping Giant. Available now. Through every storm, every moment of uncertainty,
everybody needs to pray for Charlie Kirk right now.
Rav has stood strong.
We're not going to tolerate this stuff anymore.
Turn that anger into motivation to save this nation.
When we move together, there is power.
The cries of this widow will echo like a battle cry.
This is more than news. It's a movement.
This revolution of people taking their countries back.
A turning point. A chance to be part of something greater than yourself. Scan the QR code and stand with Rav. The story isn't over, and neither is your part in it. Step in, be counted, be heard. Together, we are Rav.
We will achieve American greatness. And we are just getting.
This is a monumental moment in American culture. This Sunday, Real America's Voice and Real America's Music come together to do what the mainstream industry won't. Take the music back. Starting at 7 p.m. Eastern, we go live with exclusive free coverage of the Turning Point USA All-American Halftime Show, a patriotic alternative. For years, the left has weaponized the music industry, using it to push politics, erase values, and divide the country. That ends now. This all-American halftime show exists to celebrate American pride, traditional values, and artists who still stand with the heartland. Featuring Kid Rock, Bradley Gilbert, Lee Brice, and Gabby Barrett. Artists who connect with real Americans. Join us live for coverage that turns the music industry on its head. Real America's Voice, Real America's Music, the TPUSA All-American Halftime Show.
Andrew Colvett, the co-host of the Charlie Kirk Show, joins me. I can't get out of my mind what you told me 12 years ago. And this says more about Charlie Kirk. Every young person that says, I want to be Charlie Kirk, I want to help Charlie Kirk, I want to assist. Andrew brought up yesterday, 12 years ago, Charlie Kirk put out a tweet about this very topic. I think this is when Jackson's sister had the problem with her garb, whether it was intentional or not. I guess is still controversial. Charlie put out a tweet. It had one like. This is the lesson of Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was a grinder. When he put his mind to something, he made it great. It didn't always start great. It started small, tiny, the little seed, one like. And look, this Sunday is the culmination of what Charlie always envisioned before he was assassinated. This is the lesson of the man. As nice as he was, as gentlemanly as he was, I tell people Charlie Kirk was one of the hardest, toughest people I ever met in my entire life. This was a hard, tough guy. And he could keep his gentlemanly demeanor and listen to people and very politely argue with them, which is a superpower in and of itself. But the hard steel at the core, Andrew Colvett, was the one like, and 12 years later, through relentless work, it's finally coming to fruition. Your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, actually, I found one from 14 years ago, actually, as well, where he said, I never knew singing could be this bad. Hashtag halftime, hashtag Madonna is a joke. And that's from February 5, 2012. And I don't have how many likes on that because our team cut it off for our graphics. But the 2014, one like, clothing optional halftime performance, question mark, in February 2nd, 2014. And, Charlie sent us, sent the team images in our group chats. And one day he sent a picture of a stadium and said, this is my vision. Years and years ago. And that's what he wanted for our big conventions, our big conferences. And it's because he believed that he was a missionary to culture. He went into the parts of culture that didn't want him, but that needed him the most, Steve. And that's why he was on college campuses. That's why Turning Point is on college campuses. That's why we're on high school campuses, because that's where they need us. And, when it became really apparent to us that the professional sports league, we'll just leave it vague, didn't want to honor the forgotten men and women, the people that built this country with the halftime performance, we knew that there was a need in the marketplace. We needed to meet it. We needed to step into it. And we knew that that's exactly what Charlie wanted for Turning Point to be, and to be this juggernaut that could do this sort of thing. Yeah, it's still a David and Goliath story. I mean, we're going up against the biggest thing there is. But we have a lot of momentum behind us and a lot of people rallying behind the cause. And so here's my message to you and to your audience. Just flip the channel. Flip the channel. When the action's done, just flip the channel and check out the All-American Halftime Show. Because, Steve, we win this in two ways. We put on a great show that people enjoy, that's high production value, that's excellent, which it is. I've seen the rehearsal video from this. It is phenomenal, Steve. In your face, you're in the action, high octane, songs you know, songs you can sing along with, and they're paying tribute to this country, to their faith, to just, great all-American music. And we win it that way. We also win it if people switch the channel for the other guy. For the guy that sings in Spanish, and you come over and you sing along with us in English, because listen, that's the language we speak in this country. So it's an exciting moment, but help us and help your family. But here's the best part, Steve. It's truly excellent. This is not JV. This is not Bush League. This is not subpar. This is going to be amazing, made for TV concert experience.
Andrew, one more time, where do people go? I know on Rav we're going to start at 7, but the show is made to actually happen exactly during the halftime. We're trying to get ahead of it because I think it's going to be 8 or 8:30. So Rav is 7, but I want to make sure everybody, Rav, we're very happy. One of the sponsors for you guys to do this. We love Charlie. You're on our channel, our network, but it's everywhere, and this is important. It's everywhere. Where do people go, Andrew, to experience this?
Yeah. To your point, Rob and Parker Sig were behind us from the jump. They wanted to know how they could help. So Real America's Voice, if you are watching this show right now, you know how to find Steve. If you know how to find Steve, you know how to find the Charlie Kirk Show, you know how to find the All-American Halftime Show. So that's first thing. Secondly, it's going to be all over social media. Just go on X, go on YouTube, go on Rumble. It will be there. It will be promoted. It will be up at the top. All right. So TPUSA YouTube, TPUSA X, TPUSA Rumble. Now, for those that are technologically challenged, get somebody at your watch party that's younger than you. Throw it up on the screen. You can. Most TVs have like a YouTube app. You can have a Rumble app, and you can just flip it over, make a plan, make sure you know how to get straight over to it, because as soon as the action stops on the field, you're going to want to be tuning over for us, or watch Real America's Voice pre-show as well. So in addition to that, you're going to have Sinclair Broadcasting is going to be syndicated out on their Charge channel, Samsung Plus, YouTube TV, Hulu, Sling, all those things, just like Real America's Voice is. Daily Wire Plus, TBN, if you is on, I think, like 70 million homes, so you can switch over on the channel to traditional cable if you want to watch it on TBN. Real America's Voice, NTD, and OAN. Those are the places. That was our coalition of the willing that stepped up early, and I believe they're all going to be rewarded for it. And because the energy behind this thing is just tremendous. I mean, President Trump is being asked about it. Caroline Leavitt's being asked about it. All the shows are interviewing us about it because they want to hear more and more and more. So a lot of great storylines here, and you're not going to want to miss it, because I'm telling you, I have seen the rehearsal footage, folks. It's epic.
Andrew, you and the team over at Turning Point have done Charlie proud on this. Really, he would be so excited about this. So I want to thank you and thank everybody over there. I know the team's put in a tremendous amount of effort, and all the artists putting in their time and effort too, their managers, all of it. One more time, where do people go?
TPUSA YouTube, TPUSA X, TPUSA Rumble, Daily Wire Plus, TBN, which is on traditional cable in a lot of households. So if that's the easiest, do that. Real America's Voice, Robin Parker Sig, legends, absolute heroes here, stepped up early. NTD, which is part of Epic Times, NTD, and then OAN.
It's all the good guys. Talk about their heroes. They stepped up with a show, the Charlie Kirk Show, with you as co-host early at the very first days. Yes, they are heroes. They will take a risk. They will take a risk. Andrew Colvett.
They did.
Always great having you following us. The Charlie Kirk Show. Andrew Colvett, the co-host. Brother, go ready and get ready for a great show. We're going to make sure everybody goes there on Sunday.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, brother. So Rav is going to come up at 7 p.m. p.m. Eastern Standard Time with kind of a pregame to the halftime show. So if you get bored with the game, if you're a Patriots fan and they're not doing well, or if you're a Seahawks fan, they're not doing well, you're just bored with it. Some of these Super Bowls are quite boring. I'm not a Super Bowl fan, a football fan, but not a Super Bowl fan. Never have been. Turnover early. The Real America's Voice right here. I want to go to Tej Gill. Tej, you have a very strong message for the American people that Sharia law is not compatible. You've spent the better part of your formative years fighting for your country over there, right? Because you knew your country needed to be defended, and all the policy mistakes and all the policy debacles that put your generation at risk is got to be set aside when you look at the valor and courage. But you decided in that time coming back, I just don't want to be in the security business. I'm a man of peace, and what I want to do is start a great coffee company you have. Where do people go to get the coffee that you and I agree is a lot better than the Navy brew that you get on the Midwatch? So where do they go, sir?
Yeah, you go to warpath.coffee and then use promo code WARROOM. I think right now it's at a 15% discount, but warpath.coffee, promo code WARROOM. And the promo code WARROOM, it fluctuates. Sometimes it's up to 20, like Black Friday, it'll be like 25%, but always use promo code WARROOM if you're part of the War Room posse. You know, we've got almost 17,000 5-star reviews on the website right now. And we just dropped hot chocolate a couple days ago. So if you're a hot chocolate fan, try the hot chocolate. It's German strudel hot chocolate. And we bought every hot chocolate out there. And then we tested multiple different blends. It's got real hot chocolate in it. And we used our kids to pick the hot chocolate. So this is kid approved hot chocolate. So that's a big thing, hot chocolate. And like a couple weeks ago, we dropped the decaf K-Cups because decaf is so popular, which I never knew until last month, but we got hot chocolate and decaf up on the site now, and we've got all the different flavors. We've got, you know, the Italian Frogman espresso. We've got breakfast blend. We've got dark roast. We've got vanilla, chocolate, all the different. We got everything. So just go on there. Warpath.coffee, promo code WARROOM, and it is the best coffee out there. The way we roast it on a perforated drum, so we don't burn the beans at all, and that's why it's so smooth. You can drink it straight black. You don't need milk and sugar.
Don't take it from Tej and myself. Take it. Just go and read the 17,000 5-star reviews, folks just like yourself that came to. A lot of people have never been coffee drinkers and excited. Just read them. You'll see. I also want to know, as on the selection committee for different brews, I adamantly oppose the decaf. And of course, naturally, it's one of our number one sellers now. So that's on the marketplace. People are saying, no, we want Warpath coffee and want a decaf. Anyway, it's great. Tej, you guys are always coming up with fantastic products. Thank you, sir, for being on here. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
Warpath coffee, 17,000 5-star reviews. Dr. Thayer, the Office of Remigration, give me 60 seconds on that, and then where can I go get all your writings? You're working on a magnum opus on a 100-year war against communism that we're going to come out with by hook or crook sometime this spring or early summer. Where do people go to get all your writings after you tell me about your new position as the Office of Remigration?
Well, Steve, the Office of Remigration's ordering principle is going to be that the era of mass immigration is over. Mass immigration, illegal or legal, is over. And we're entering a new era, which is the era of remigration. So illegal immigration is over forever. And legal immigration is going to go from the aperture of a storm drain to the aperture of a straw. And what this office needs to do is focus on the following missions. It's going to have to develop strategies that can be shared with other states, with Australia, Canada, UK, European Union states. They might not be there yet, but we need to give them the strategies. Secondly, there's going to have to be the coordination and policy development for remigration strategies. Coordination, of course, with other states.
We got to bounce. Would you, if the president asked you, would you take the office here if we set it up in the U.S.? Would you step into it?
I'm happy to advise, but Rosemary is awesome, and so is Todd Bensman. Lots of folks have been neglected for too long. Steve,
give me your social media. Where do people go to get you?
Brad Thayer at X and Bradley Thayer at Getter and Truth. Rosemary or Todd.
working on a huge book on the 100-year war against communism.
The radical left knows exactly what they're doing. They want to steal the election. We're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue, and we're going to the Capitol. They need to take back our country.
Events in Washington have taken a violent and tumultuous turn.
January 6th wasn't just a moment in history. For thousands of Americans, it was the moment their voices were taken.
It's insurrection.
They were persecuted, hunted.
Seditious conspiracy.
But behind prison walls, something unexpected happened. They found their voice again.
Started singing the national anthem.
We took it up to him at Mar-a-Lago. He goes, I'll put my voice on it.
Our supporters made this go platinum.
Real America's Voice is telling the real story of January 6th like you've never seen it before.
Everybody, this must be peaceful.
This is not the story you were shown.
I take responsibility.
This is the story they live.
Government entrapment scheme that this actually was.
The J6 Patriots are no longer staying silent. They are speaking, they are standing, and they are telling the truth.
You can't kill us. You can't beat us.
Scan the QR code or visit realamericasvoice.com. Real America's Voice presents The Sleeping Giant. Available now. Through every storm, every moment of uncertainty,
everybody needs to pray for Charlie Kirk right now.
Rav has stood strong.
We're not going to tolerate this stuff anymore.
Turn that anger into motivation to save this nation.
When we move together, there is power.
The cries of this widow will echo like a battle cry.
This is more than news. It's a movement.
This revolution of people taking their countries back.
A turning point. A chance to be part of something greater than yourself. Scan the QR code and stand with Rav. The story isn't over, and neither is your part in it. Step in, be counted, be heard. Together, we are Rav.
We will achieve American greatness. And we are just getting.
Americans were tragically killed and lost their lives this week yet again from an illegal alien, an individual who was paroled into the country by the Biden administration using the CBP-1 app, which they created like it was a magic pass for Disneyland. That's not how immigration in this country should work. And this illegal alien from Kyrgyzstan was traveling on an Indiana highway, and he failed to brake for a slowed semi-truck in front of him. He swerved into the lane and he crashed into a van carrying 15 passengers, and 4 people were killed in that crash. This is another tragedy that could have been prevented if not for the wide open borders from the previous administration. That's why we now have a secure border. That's why this administration will continue to deport illegal aliens from our country.
I mean, are you proud of Caroline Leavitt every day? Remember she ran in that first primary? I mean, she's become, I think, the best I've ever seen at running these press conferences, all those jackals in there. Of course, there's a lot of good people now, too, but, I mean, she's the best. So Shannon Everett from American Truckers United. Brother, here's what I don't understand. Help me out. I know the immigration thing is all screwed up, but we've had you on here for almost a year. I thought that, and you guys made a compelling case. You had the audience thought this problem was solved. We understand there's guys all over the place that have come in from Biden, but I thought we had them off the road. Tell me how did this tragedy happen? And Shannon, what do we have to do? What does this audience have to do to have your back to stop this?
Absolutely. Thank you, Steve. You know, I owe a huge debt of gratitude to the War Room Posse and to you, Steve Bannon, because we did accomplish the mission of elevating this message and bringing the message to the attention of the national media and the American people. Because, you know, prior to coming on your show almost a year ago, the American people did not know that they were driving up and down the highways with a bunch of illegal alien truck drivers who weren't properly qualified, weren't properly trained, and hadn't been vetted. You know, we don't even know who these drivers are. And that's because, like in the case of the recent crash that we had just here in Indiana, these guys have snuck across the border, either using the app or some other means of getting into the country. They come into these sanctuary cities, they apply for asylum, and the loophole that has existed has been these asylum requests and these EAD cards. So historically, the industry did not issue CDLs to illegal aliens who did not have lawful status in the United States. And there was guidance issued in 2019. And so even though we have awareness now to what the problem is, we do not have action on the problem. President Trump issued an executive order that called for the investigation of the non-domicile CDL as soon as he heard that there might be a problem. Our Secretary Duffy, who's been doing a great job of bringing awareness and jumping on this issue, conducted that investigation and found that it was absolutely true, that the system's broken and that too many of these licenses have been issued and that they've been issued illegally. But, and he did, the USDOT did issue an interim final ruling that stopped the further issuance of the non-domiciled CDLs, but it did not revoke the hundreds of thousands of non-domiciled CDLs that have been issued improperly, illegally, and illicitly.
Shannon, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come to you right after the show. We're going to have you on tomorrow morning. I got to spend, my head's blowing up now. This is, and look at not just taking jobs. First off, taking jobs. Number two, driving down wages. Number three, they're causing massive traffic accidents. This is not acceptable. It has to be revocation. We have to revoke these and then get them out of the country. This is another HB, like an H-1B scam. So, Shannon, tell people where they can go right now for American Truckers United. I'm going to have you back on tomorrow on the Saturday show. We can spend some time because this is outrageous. And look, the White House knows the problem. Caroline's very judicious about what she selects to talk about, right? And right there, she's saying another outrage. But we got to take this as ultimate conclusion. They all have to be revoked. Everybody see the hundreds of thousands, and they got to be sent out of the country. And we got to hold accountable for the accidents and the tragedies they've put on American people. This is unacceptable, and we got to take action. Shannon, between now and tomorrow, where do people go to get access to everything at American Truckers United?
Go to our social medias. Our tag on all social media accounts, including X, is at ATU Truckers. And then visit our website, www.americantruckers.com. And I just want to point out the executive administration is doing everything to help us. The roadblocks are in the federal agencies and in the legislative pushes.
I take it that there are trucking companies that people know that think are all American actors that are some of these trucking companies are pushing this so they can have cheaper labor as drivers. Am I correct in that assumption?
It's a battle between Wall Street and Main Street. Your Main Street American companies hire American truck drivers. Huge Wall Street corporations are brokering freight to illegal aliens. They're contracting it out. They're operating behind willful blindness, pretending that they don't know, even though this is all over national media. Everybody knows who's involved. Everybody knows who they're giving freight to, but they're not willing to put it down because they're profiting. So we need to discuss who the profiteers are, and we need to talk about this Supreme Court case where they plan to give the people who are profiting off all of this immunity from these crashes.
Okay, Shannon, we're going to have you on tomorrow. Talk to you right after the show. Thank you, brother. Shannon Everett, American Truckers United. Unbelievable. I tell you, it's regulatory capture is what we call it. Mike Lindell, you're leading the one real poll out there. You're leading by 1 point over, I guess, the Speaker of the House or the leading Republican in the House in Minnesota. You're in a dogfight. You're going to be down with our own Glenn Story down in Mar-a-Lago this weekend. What are you guys doing down there?
I'm doing big fundraisers, Steve, and everybody's gotten behind, even though this is Minnesota race. Minnesota is the tip of the spear for the country. So important, everybody, and everybody's getting behind it down there in Mar-a-Lago. I'm doing 4 events to raise money for this huge advertising push, marketing push. I'm going to come to win the governorship of Minnesota. You guys can all be a part of that. MikeLindellGov.com. You guys check it out. Help donate. We're going to be doing this push over the next month and a half, and I'm going to tell you all about it soon. It's MikeLindellGov.com. In the meantime, you guys, I wanted to get on here. I'm just ready to board a plane. I'll tell you about where 2 sales collide. This is our 2nd annual mega sale. And you guys, we have the Giza Dream Sheets, low as $29.98. We're keeping the mattress toppers and mattresses on sale for another day here. Free shipping on your entire order. This is go to warroom.com, mypillow.com/war room. There you see these 2 sales colliding for today. You get the mattresses on lowest price in history. We have technology for you, so you get the best sleep of your life. Promo code War Room. It's 800-873-1062. My operators are standing by, and they love talking to you guys, the War Room Posse. They love this time of year when you get both sales for free shipping with promo code War Room right to your front door.
Brother, thank you. We'll talk to you this afternoon and tomorrow. You head to Mar-a-Lago. Glenn Story's going to be there, the great Glenn Story. A lot going on down there this weekend. Charlie Kirk Show next. Also after that, we're back at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time live.
Exactly what they're doing. They want to steal the election. We're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue, and we're going to the Capitol. They need to take back our country.
Events in Washington have taken a violent and tumultuous turn.